We're going to talk today about comparative and superlative adverbs. But before we get into that, we should probably review what is an adverb. So just to review, adjectives versus adverbs. The adjectives describe nouns. The adverbs describe verbs or sometimes verb phrases. For example, the rabbit is quick. This is an adjective. Quick describes the noun, rabbit. The rabbit runs quickly. This is an adverb. Adverb quickly is describing the verb run. How does the rabbit run? It runs quickly. Or sometimes the adverb can describe the whole phrase. The rabbit ran around the room quickly. Here, quickly is describing ran around the room. Some more examples. The man is angry. Angry is an adjective. It describes man. The man yelled angrily. Angrily is describing yelled, so it's an adverb. The music is loud. Loud describes music, so it's an adjective. The drum banged loudly. Loudly is describing the verb banged, so it's an adverb. The girl is proud. Proud is describing the noun girl, so it's an adjective. Or the girl spoke proudly. Here, proudly is describing how the girl spoke, so it's an adverb. So, as you've probably been noticing, the adverb form is often, not always, but often, formed by taking the adjective form and adding ly. There are many examples, but here are 5. Calm, calmly, clear, clearly, adjective correct, adverb correctly, adjective nice, adverb nicely, adjective sad, adverb sadly. And there are many, many more examples of this in English. However, sometimes in English, the adverb form will have the same form as the adjective form. For example, he is fast. This is an adjective. It's describing he. But we can also say he runs fast. Here, it's the same form, but this is now an adverb because it's describing run. And there are many more examples of this in English. He runs fastly. Here, we can't say fastly. Fastly is not a good English word because the adjective form and the adverb form are the same here. They are both fast. And there are many more examples of this in English. The early bird gets the worm, early as an adjective, versus he wakes up early, early as an adverb. You are late, late describing you, adjective. He arrived late, late describing arrived, adverb. The test is hard, hard describing test, adjective. He worked hard, hard describing worked, adverb. So there are a number of adverbs in English that will have the same form as the adjectives, but here are some of the most common. Fast, early, late, hard, long, near, high, low, soon. There are more, but these are some of the most common the most common adverbs that have the same form as adjectives. Now, actually, in informal English, there are some more. Easy. Easy does have an adverb form, easily. But in informal English, especially in spoken English, some people will use easy as an adverb. Same with slow. Slow does have slowly as the adverb form, but in informal English, people will use slow as the adverb. Also loud, it, loudly is the adverb, but in informal English, people can use loud as the adverb, or quick. Okay, now the comparative forms. If it's an ly adverb, the comparative form is formed by adding more to the ly adverb. So politely would become more politely. Quietly is more quietly. Calmly is more calmly. Freely is more freely, etc. Here are some examples. Could you please speak more slowly? We need to work more efficiently. Now, if the adverbs have the same form as the adjectives, then the comparative form is formed the same way as the adjective comparative form. You add the er. So fast, faster, early, earlier, late, later, hard, harder. Examples. You need to wake up earlier. Work harder. Could you ask me again later? Now, as we saw before, these words in informal English can use the adjective form as adverbs. So easier, it would be more easily in formal English, but easier in sometimes spoken English. Slower, the formal would be more slowly. Louder, again, formal English would be more loudly. And quicker, formal English would be more quickly. So speak slower is perfectly fine informal spoken English. However, on a test, you would want to write speak more slowly. So this is informal English. Or can you talk louder? Again, this is informal English. On a test, you would want to say talk more loudly. Now, you can compare two actions using then. Bob works more efficiently. Sorry, Tom. Tom works more efficiently than Bob. Now notice after the then, we don't need to repeat the verb again. We can just say Bob. Just the noun is fine. So Tom works more efficiently than Bob. My old car can go much faster than my new car. My new car can go much faster than my old car. So we have the noun phrase here, my old car, but we don't need to repeat the whole verb phrase. We just have then followed by a noun phrase. However, you can, if you want to, put in a verb, but you have to use the auxiliary. So you can say Tom works more efficiently than Bob, or Tom works more efficiently than Bob does. Because this is a main verb here with no auxiliary, we would use does. Don't say Tom works more efficiently than Bob works. That would be wrong. Say Tom works more efficiently than Bob, or Tom works more efficiently than Bob does. Here we have a modal auxiliary, can, so we can use this. We can say my new car can go much faster than my old car can. However, if we have a pronoun like I, you, they, he, her, then we do need the auxiliary here. So Bob works harder than I do. We can't just say I. This would be wrong. We need the auxiliary with a pronoun. However, sorry, we would use the auxiliary after the pronoun. So Bob works harder than I do. Again, because this is a main verb here, we would use do as the auxiliary. Here, she can run faster than I can. We have an auxiliary verb here, so we can use that here. Or he will eat more than I will. And again, because we have a pronoun I, we need the auxiliary to make it grammatical. Now, in informal English, some people will use the object pronoun instead of the subject plus the auxiliary. And this is fine in spoken English. So Bob works harder than I do. You can say Bob works harder than me. That's informal English. So again, on a test, you would want to say than I do. But for spoken English, than me is fine. And the same is true for any object pronoun. So Bob works harder than he does. In spoken English, we can say Bob works harder than him. But you can't use the subject pronoun. You can't say Bob works harder than he. You would need to either say than he does or than him. Now, the superlative forms. For ly adverbs, the superlative form is formed by most plus the ly adverb. So politely, most politely, quietly, most quietly, calmly, most calmly, freely, most freely, etc. For adjectives that have the same form, for adverbs that have the same form as the adjective forms, it would be formed the same way as a superlative adjective. The adverb form plus the est. So fast, fastest, early, earliest, late, latest, hard, hardest. Now, we usually say that the comparative form is used to compare two things with each other, and the superlative is used to compare one thing with the whole group. So Bob works harder than Tom. There are two people, so we use the comparative harder. However, we can also say Bob works harder than the whole company, because in this sentence, we're imagining two things. There's Bob and there's the whole company, and we're comparing these two things. For the same reason, we would use the comparative here. Bob works harder than anyone in the whole company, because with this grammar, we're imagining two groups. There's Bob, and then there's anyone in the whole company. But if we make it clear that Bob is part of the group by using of, we can say Bob works the hardest of anyone in the company. And we would use of with something like anyone in the company or of everyone in the company. If we're just using a group though, like the company, we'd use in. So Bob works the hardest in the whole company, or Bob works the hardest in the world. So of with pronouns like anyone, everyone, in when we want to indicate that it's inside a group. Now, as you may have already noticed, the superlative forms collocate with the. The superlative forms use the fastest, the hardest, the most politely. So whenever you're using a superlative form, make sure to use the with it. There are two exceptions. One is in an informal spoken style. So who can run the fastest? In informal spoken English, this could be who can run fastest. But if you're writing a test, make sure to use the formal style, the fastest. Also, the is not used when we compare the same person in different situations. For example, he studies the hardest in the class. In formal English, we need the because we're comparing one person with the rest of his class. But he studies hardest the night before the test. Here, there is no the because we're comparing the same person in different situations. So he studies hard every night, but he studies hardest the night before the test. So it's the same person, but just comparing the different situations in which he studies. So because it's the same person, but different situations for that same person, there's no the here. But because we're comparing different people here, we would use the with the superlative. We can also use as form if we want to say that two things are equal. For example, he can run just as fast as I can, meaning my running fast and his running fast are at the same level. And we would often use just here, just as fast as I can. You don't need the just, but it's used to emphasize that it's equal. Again here, just as with the comparative then phrase, you can use a noun phrase like Tom can run just as fast as Jack. You can use I plus the modal, pronoun, subject pronoun plus the modal, or in informal English, you can use the object pronoun here. He can run just as fast as me. Or also with an ly adjective, ly adverb, it would work the same. Tom works just as efficiently as I do. A negative phrase using as, you would put the negative marker on the main verb or on the auxiliary for the main verb. So he can't run as fast as I can. And here there's no just. You would usually get rid of the just. He can't run as fast as I can. Tom doesn't work as efficiently as I do. Sorry, there's a mistake there. Should be no S. My mistake. Tom doesn't work with no S as efficiently as I do. And you can also see as being used in some phrases, like I got here as fast as I could, or try as hard as you can. So these are adverbs being used in as phrases. Try as hard as you can, or please get here as fast as you can, or I got here as fast as I could, are phrases that you might see. There's also the double comparatives, and we use this to show that something is changing. It's getting more and more every time. So he's working harder and harder, meaning over time, the amount of hard he is working is increasing all the time. Every day, he's working harder than the day before, or every hour, he's working harder than the hour before. It's quite often used with continuous forms here to show that something's changing. He's working harder and harder. Now, with the ly adjectives, it would be more and more. For example, we're driving more and more slowly. You wouldn't say, don't say, we're driving more slowly and more slowly. Just say we're driving more and more slowly. We can use much or far as intensifiers to make the comparative adverbs stronger. So he can run much faster than I can. The much here is used to make the faster stronger. Or he can run far faster than I can. Here, much and far have the same meaning. In informal English, you can use a lot for the same meaning. He can run a lot faster than I can. Don't use very. Very is not good English for comparative adjectives. Sorry, comparative adverbs. Now, to make the comparative adverb weaker, you can use a bit or a little or slightly. So he can run a bit faster than I can. We're almost the same, but he's a little faster, a bit faster. Or he can run a little faster than I can, same meaning. Or he can run slightly faster than I can. Again, very similar meaning here. Last thing, there are some adverbs where the comparative form and the superlative form are irregular, and you just have to memorize the forms. These are well, better, best. So he plays well. He plays better than I do. He plays the best of everyone. Or badly, worse, worst. He plays badly. He plays worse than I do. He plays the worst of everyone. Another irregular comparative adverb is little, less, least. For example, he talks little. He talks less than I do. He talks the least of everyone. Okay, another one is much, more, most. For example, he eats much. He eats more than I do. He eats the most of everyone. The last one here is a bit strange because there are two different forms for the comparative and two different forms for the superlative, but they have the same meaning. So far, farther, farthest, or far, further, furthest. Slightly different pronunciations and different spellings, but the same meaning. So he can run far. He can run farther than I can, or he can run further than I can. Same meaning. He can run the farthest, or he can run the furthest. Same meaning again. So these are some examples of comparative and superlative adjectives. Sorry, not adjectives. I keep saying that. Sorry, that's a bad habit. These are comparative and superlative adverbs. Sorry, it's usually much more common to talk about comparative and superlative adjectives in English class. So I keep saying comparative and superlative adjectives. I apologize when I make that mistake. Today we are talking about comparative and superlative adverbs.